Alright, so in this first video here, I'm going to go over with you how to basically make a simple shading tornado. And the purpose of shading, the reason why we learn how to do shading, is so that way you can turn two-dimensional shapes into complicated, seemingly complicated 3D forms. So it makes something that was once flat suddenly become three-dimensional. So basically what we're going to do, and I'm going to show you how to do, is how to go from dark from dark to light all the way to the white of the paper with nice smooth transitions from one tone to another. Alright, now what you'll need for this is a well sharpened pencil because it just works better. So you'll need a well sharpened pencil, an eraser, and a pencil sharpener handy. Now something you'll notice is that since I have more hours of practice, I can do this usually in just one shot without any difficulties because I have a lot more practice with this. You probably will not, and that's okay. What's going to happen is that when you do it the first time, you're probably going to see the pencil lines. Just like this. See how you can kind of see the pencil lines? You can see the white of the paper between each of the little shading marks. The goal is to get it to where it just looks like nice and fuzzy without using your fingers to blend, because that ends up just making it look dirty and sloppy. So what you can do, you don't have to start another one, you don't need to erase and start all over. What you can actually do is go in and polish it. And basically kind of go in at a little bit of an angle, pressing not quite as hard as you did on the first go. And what that does is it fills in all those little gaps that you missed. Sometimes you need to do it a couple times, and that's no big deal. Whatever it takes to get that good craftsmanship going. And probably the hardest part, and where you're going to struggle with this the most, is getting this last transition. When you go from that lightest gray to the white of the paper to where you can hardly tell where it stops. That is probably the hardest part about shading. You know, you can usually get this down in 1, maybe 2, 3 class periods, but this is the hardest part here. And basically, when you get to that point, all you're doing is using the weight of the pencil. You're really not even adding any pressure, it's just gravity, using the weight of the pencil to get that last bit of transition from, you know, that lightest gray to the white of the paper to where you can barely see where it stops. So that is always the goal, and that's probably the hardest part to do. So if you don't get there immediately, don't stress out about it. Just always be focusing on getting that one part right. Once you know how to do this well, you can then apply it to a three-dimensional form. So I can turn this flat two-dimensional circle into a three-dimensional form by strategically shading from dark to light. Once you have enough practice. And I could spend a lot more time polishing this up. Quite a bit more time. And before I ever finish anything, I always go back in and ask myself, what can I do to make this better? I think I can go back in and clean up this edge. I'll always be looking for that extra bit of craftsmanship that'll take it from good to great. See, now I turn this once flat circle into a 3D form. And if I really wanted to enhance that, I could add a cast shadow. Getting ahead of myself here, but then that just makes it look even more realistic. Yeah. So I can make it look